What is going on, friends? How are you? It's your boy James out here. What's happening? What's happening? Super excited to be kicking it with you all right now. How's your day going? Let me know in the chat what's going on. If you can hear me okay, do me a favor. Smash that thumbs button. Smash the like button. Smash something just so I know that the sound is coming through okay. Please. I appreciate you. And let me know what's going on. How's your day going? You got something random happening? Let me know in the chat, my friends. Great. I can see that you can hear me. I appreciate that. For sure. I'm excited to have you all here. Excited to have you all coming in here, sliding in to the diner booth with me. My friends, I'm really excited because next week is the launch of the Diner Talks with James podcast. And now, if you've been watching these episodes over time, thank you, Scott. If you've been watching these episodes over time, then you know that I've kind of started to hint that the podcast was coming and allude to it, but I'm really pumped. Next week, it drops live on iTunes, and it's going to be dope. It's also going to be all over other places, Spotify, Amazon, all these other kind of spots, Deezer, wherever you catch your podcasts. But I'm really pumped about it, y'all. And so it's dropping next week. And so I'm also wondering, for those of you that have been tuning into this, for from time to time, I'm wondering if you'd be willing to help me out and write a review. If you would be willing to write a review for my podcast when it comes out next week, if you could do me a favor and just shoot in the chat really quick, just a quick message to me of like, I'm in. Right? I'm in, and then I'll know to message you how you can drop a review once the thing launches next week. But we're just trying to get some traction on this puppy and see what we can do and see where we can go and see if we can expand the Diner Talks with James community. Because the more the merrier, my friends, the more the merrier. No occupancy rate when we're talking about the internet. But yes, let me know if you would, please. I would appreciate it. I would appreciate it for sure. So this week, we have my boy, Mr. Jeff Dess. Mr. Boy Jeff Dess is coming on, but he's actually going to be here a little bit late. He's giving a speech right now as we speak. And so we're going to do things a little bit differently this week. We're going to do things a little bit differently this week. I appreciate you. Thank you, Brittany Prime. All right, I see you. Okay, let's go. There we go. Thank you so much, Claire. I really appreciate it. Thank you, friend. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Scott. Audra in the building. What up, Sable? Go Flashes. I love it, my friend. So we're going to do something a little bit different this week. And I am going to, I'm going to tell you all a story. Audra, this will be fun that you're on here because you're going to know a few people I'm talking about if you're listening. But let me tell you this quick story, and then we're going to jump into the top three, and then we're going to jump into the episode. Jeff will be here around a quarter after. I'm really excited for you all to meet him and get to hang out with him. So, but first, let me share a story with you that I've been working on a little bit. Let's go. Her name was Kate. And here the thing is that you never know when you start to fall in love. And I understand that love is a complicated thing, but for me, love came early. Love came early around the age of 5. It was kindergarten. And though I didn't know necessarily what love was, I sure as hell knew how it felt, because whenever I saw Kate, I knew there was something about her. And I fell in love, y'all. And here's the thing. She was also 5. We were both 5. But at that point, she was already a woman. There was class. There was sass. There was everything you could ever want. And she was incredible. I remember during nap time in kindergarten, I was supposed to be catching some Z's, but instead I was picturing Kate and I running up to each other and giving each other a smooch. And it was so cute. Oh my goodness. Now, Kate, I don't know if she knew that I liked her at this particular point in time, but I tried to spend some time with her. But the thing is that at this age, how do you impress? What do you do? How do you figure it out? So I was hanging out on the playground. On one side of the blacktop. And on the far side of the blacktop, there was a glow. That glow was Kate. And I saw her and I was like, oh, shoot, there she is. This is incredible. What another beautiful day. But local school bully was standing next to me. TJ was standing next to me and he said, hey, James, you looking at Kate? I say, yeah, I'm looking at Kate. He said, well, I'm looking at Kate. I said, okay, so we're both looking at Kate. He said, let's do this, James. First one in a race that gets to her across the blacktop gets to hold her hand while we go into class. I said, TJ, you're on. Now, my friends, don't let my current size fool you. Back in the day, your boy had the quickness, okay? So I took off like the rest of my life depended on it because, my friends, the rest of my life depended on it. And I bolted across that black top. I don't even know. I was a gazelle most of the time. I was in the air just floating. Are you kidding me? My destiny surely coming closer to me. And then, my friends, I would love to tell you that the antagonist of the story, the school bully TJ, tripped me and I fell. But alas, my friends, I am my own antagonist and I tripped myself and I fell and I slid up to Kate Laredo as opposed to running up to her. But I didn't get to hold Kate Laredo's hand on the way back in. No, instead, I got to hold Mrs. Frank's hand, my teacher, because I had broken my left arm. But fear not, my friends, fear not. Kate signed the cast. Okay, still got it. Her name was Kristen. We're now in middle school. Her name is Kristen, and in my hometown, there were 3 elementary schools that all merged into one middle school. And so there were individuals that lived fairly closely to me that I had no idea where we were in the same school district or that we would ever meet. But this woman's name was Kristen. And I again say woman, my friends, even though we were both in middle school. Turns out she lived just around the corner from me and she was impeccable. I couldn't believe it. Brown hair, brown eyes. Don't mind if I do. But here's the thing. I'm sitting there like, how could this woman be this close to me yet be so far? How have we never met? How big is the moat to this woman's castle? Where have you been, fair maiden of them all? I walked onto the school bus first day of middle school, and out of the 3rd bus row on the side, on the right-hand side, there was a glow. And that glow was Kristen. Now, she had an empty seat next to her. Do you think I sat down? No, I didn't, my friends. Your boy is a boss, okay? I walked to the back of the bus. I didn't even make eye contact, okay? No, you kidding me? I got to stay hard in these streets. So I walked into the back of the bus and I sat down because I knew that would impress her. I started taking the long way home from my friends' places. We would start going. I would start taking the bike to my buddy's place, Kevin's. We'd be playing basketball, doing all that stuff. And then it was time for Mama Robolata's spaghetti. So I had to get back on the bike and I would ride home, but I would take the long way past Kristen's house, just hoping she would be outside. And she never was until one day. Until one day she was outside, out there with her sisters, 2 younger sisters. And oh my God, you already know that she is the best big sister that there ever was. I mean, how could she not be this amazing creature? And so I saw her and I was like, this is the moment. And my friends, do you think I stopped to talk to her? No! I immediately stood up on my bike and I pedaled 45 times faster than I had ever gone before because I knew that next day when I got onto the school bus, out of the 3rd row on the right-hand side, there would be that glow that is Kristen. And I would hear from out of that glow, hey, James, so you're riding your bike past my house the other day? You're pretty speedy. Why don't you come sit next to me? Let me tell you what did not happen, friends. That. Alas, Kristen and I never were. Her name was Debbie. Debbie was her name, and Debbie and I were both enthralled with theater. If I can come out to you as a thespian, I appreciate it. Thank you. And so I was a big thespian. I was in all of the plays, the one-acts, the musicals, the dramas. I was in them all. I loved it. That was my community in high school. And her name was Debbie, and she was incredible. She was so sweet. She had lips like pillows, I assume. I don't. Okay. But so she had an hourglass figure and I was intrigued. But more importantly, she was just a great human, kind, caring, filled with love, and she liked spending time with me. She liked spending time with me, and that made me so happy. I would go to her house and I would watch Rocky Horror Picture Show more times than I care to admit. And I don't know if I would ever admit to her what I will admit to you right now. And that's that I don't know if I like Rocky Horror Picture Show. I mean, I see its place, but I certainly did not need to watch it that many times. It was fun because Debbie and I would hold hands in her basement. I would give her hand massages. Sometimes I would rub her shoulders. And it was amazing because I would listen to her talk to me about all the boys that she liked. Yeah. Her name was Sarah. Sarah and I met in college. I was just a couple of years older than her. She came in as an interested potential student leader, and so I got to meet her, and she was so fun. She was so different than anybody else I had ever met. Sure, she was from Pennsylvania, and we were in school in North Carolina, but during the summers, she would go to Montana and give people tours and camping tours in Yellowstone and in Glacier. Who gives people tours in Glacier when they're 18, 19 years old? Sarah was incredible. She had a zest for life. The way that she saw the world was different than anybody I'd ever met before, and she made me happy. She had big blue eyes, and she laughed at my jokes. And if you laugh at my jokes, I probably like you at least a little bit already. It was incredible. So one day I talked to Sarah, and I said, Sarah, have you ever been on a date before? And she said, no, I haven't. I said, oh, I've never been on a date before either. If you couldn't tell from the previous stories, I've never been on a date before either. I said, Sarah, do you think potentially we could go on a date? And she said, James, I'd like that. So I took Sarah out to Carrabba's, and let me tell you about Carrabba's, my friends, because I'm an upscale dude out here. I'm not going to no Olive Garden, despite being the fact that I'm the OG. You know what I mean? And so we go out to Carrabba's because your boy's getting that mezzaluna because I've never met a ravioli I don't like. And so we're out there having a great time. Sarah's laughing. I'm having fun. The bill comes. I was taught at a young age that if you ask somebody out, you should pay for the date. Whoever asks is the one who pays. Is the way I was taught. And so that's what I went on. Since it was my first date, that's what I went off of. And so I put the card on the nice metal tray. And then the server came back and said, I'm sorry, your card's been declined. And now I knew damn well, after a poor credit history, that was the only card that had any hope in my wallet. And so I gave them another card in hopes of seeing it would work, but alas, I knew it wouldn't. But in the meantime, I called my roommate because my roommate owed me $50. And so I didn't call him, though, because he was a little suspect. Instead, I called my other roommate and said, listen, I need you to get these $50 from Robbie that he owes me. And I need you to come here to Carrabba's. I need you to give me the $50, and I'll be able to take care of the date, and everything will be fine. And my roommate's like, no problem, I got you. And then a few minutes later, in walks Robbie with my roommate behind him going, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I tried to stop him. I'm so sorry. Robbie walks up to the table, said, hey, James, heard you're in a tight spot, man. No problem. I got you. And he put the $50 on the tray, and he winked at Sarah. And he said, I'll see you back at the apartment, James. Robbie and Sarah dated for 3 years after that, my friends. I share these stories with you because after all of these times, I wondered, am I ever going to find love? I wondered, did I deserve love? Did I do something wrong? Is there some karma that I don't know about in the world? Why aren't I enough for some of these individuals that I'm interested in? And now it's not their fault at all. Please know that, okay? There's no real such thing as a friend zone. If someone doesn't like you, they're just allowed to not like you, my friends. But I wrote this story, and I let them write this story that I wasn't enough, that I was never going to find anybody, that I was never going to actually find love. And I developed one of my fears, which is that I'm always going to be alone. And it was really kind of dark and really kind of sad. But then one day I realized that I wasn't the one doing the writing, that I wasn't the one doing the writing of my own story. So, my friends, who have you let hold the pen to your story? because I took back the pen and I rewrote a new chapter. I didn't rewrite a new chapter. That would be weird. I just wrote a new chapter. Her name is Tina. And I love her. And she loves me. Thank you all. I appreciate you for letting me go off on a little story out here. I see my boy Jeff Dess is in the building. I love it. My boy Jeff, we're going to bring him out here. And we're going to bring him out here. Let's just do it. Let's do it right now, actually, my friends. Let me tell you. Let's start this episode the way we're supposed to. All right? Here we go. Welcome to Diner Talks with James. I'm James, my friend. Super excited to have y'all out here back in the diner. I'm excited for this episode right now. Before we get into it, my friends, I want to let you know that we are super excited that this is now a podcast. Can you believe it? We've been waiting so long. It's a podcast. And so if you are listening on the podcast, I'm super pumped that you're here, my friends. Thank you so much. For those of you that are watching on the live stream, what's going on, fam? Good to see you. Good to see you. Let's jump in. My boy, Jeff Dess is in the waiting room, and I need to bring him out here because y'all need to meet him. Let me tell you about this man. Jeff and I met as coworkers at New Jersey City University, where we had a damn good a time working together. It was nothing but laughs. It was also competition between who's got the freshest fit, who's got the good sneakers, who's wearing the coolest hat. Jeff and his damn vests. You know what I'm saying? Like, we out here with these blazers. And so it was always a great experience. But most importantly, we impacted lives. And we created an environment where those students could thrive. And that's what Jeff does. Jeff sets up these spaces for individuals to know that they can show up and win. He started his own education company with our boy Lenny called Trill Not Trill. And they're doing incredible programs across the country on incorporating pop culture and leadership so that we're actually delivering the messages that people can hear in a way that they can understand. And they're also doing some really powerful consulting work and some other really awesome things. And they also just wrote a book. And it's coming out here really soon. By the time, if you're on the podcast, by the time you're hearing this, it's actually probably already out. It's called We Wear Kicks to Work. Let me bring this man out for you right now. The one, the only, Mr. Jeff Dess. My guy.
I'm on the show. What's up, James? How are you?
I'm great, Jeff. How are you doing?
I'm good. Hold on. Let me make sure I look good for y'all and angle myself so I could look right there. There we go. Now we cooking with hot grease. How are you, my friend?
My guy, I'm good now. You're looking good out here. We got the beanie on, the matching tie. I see you.
Listen, I knew that it was Diner Talks, and I felt like, sometimes at the diner, you either are wearing a hoodie or you're wearing a three-piece suit. So I wanted to combine the two. This is casual at the top, business on the bottom. We're here to go, man.
We're here to go. We're here to go for sure. I love that, man. I love that. Now you're a proud New Yorker, growing up in Queens, of course. Queens in the building. Now, did you go to a lot of diners growing up? And if so, what was your diner move? Like, what did you? When would you go, and what would you normally get? Like, what's your typical diner move?
Yeah. So, when I was growing up, I did not really go to diners at all, but it was like college and then grad school. And then my first professional job is when it really started to kick in. And I worked in residence life and housing. And I was an RA. So, that means long nights, up at 3, 4, 5 in the morning. So that was the move. Mm-hmm. It was after midnight always. And, I'm a vegetarian today, but previously the move was a patty melt. I was big into eating burgers in a sandwich. I thought it was just like the most fascinating thing to have a burger meat not on a bun. It reminded me of like growing up when I was a kid. My grandma used to make these horrendous burgers. They tasted delicious, but they looked all deformed. And then what would happen is she'd put them in some bread, get some white bread. And that was my sandwich. And I think that's really what got me. Patty melts were my go-to move. It was like the burger, the onions, the bread, and then some fries, of course. And then that was it. That was a go-to.
They put a little of that Russian dressing on there too, don't they?
Yeah. You get some dressing on. I mean, it's just, that was it for me. I just loved eating at 3 o'clock in the morning and eating that, and it just felt really good. And it was always with a friend, right? So my diner move was never alone. Even though I didn't have any problems eating alone, but I loved just going to the diner, having the conversation with somebody, and then just eating, right? And then, of course, also a secondary meal was the omelet, right? You can't, I feel like the omelet is an automatic diner item that you have to get. And you can't ask for like fancy omelets. It can't be avocados and, let me get some peppers and listen,
no
egg, cheese. I think that's about it, man.
That's about it. Yo, no lie. Sometimes I go 2 cheese. Sometimes I go cheddar.
Right.
Express.
That's if you're fancy, man.
We call those payday. That extra 50
I love
cents.
it. I know. I remember going to a diner in Maine. I don't know if you've been there. It's like the big diner in Maine where like all the presidential candidates go. It's like this little small diner, and it's this tiny diner in Maine. And I remember going in there and just thinking like, what do I get? And the lady was like, man, as I'm like looking down the menu, trying to be all fancy, she was like, man, just get the omelet. And I was like, you're right. I'll just take the omelet.
What was I trying to do here? What was I trying to do?
All right. Well, what are we fighting? Why are we fighting this, man? Just give me the omelet.
I love that, man. Yeah, for sure. I think, that's definitely the move for me. I also do a little corned beef hash from time to time. My parents taught me that, a little corned beef hash for sure.
Yeah, I think like at a diner, you shouldn't be eating things, and this is no shade to diners, but you shouldn't be eating things that are fancy, right? I think the premium diner move, like I have friends that have gone into diners and they're like, let me get spaghetti. And I'm like, what are you doing here? This is not the place to get spaghetti. What are you talking about? Let me get the tilapia. What do we? No, man.
You like flipping. That's like deeper into the menu than you'd ever been before.
Right. That's like page 17. I'm like, listen, page 17 is not for you, bro. Just go page 1 through 4. That's where you need to stay. Your triple decker sandwich, your, you know what I'm saying? Your tuna fish, your eggs, your pancakes. That's it, man. Like when I see diners have steaks and lobsters, I'm like, man, this is not the place. I'm not getting that here.
Nope. Yeah, no, for sure. Those lobsters that they got in the back, they're not moving anymore. There's nothing. That lobster's been there since the owner bought the spot.
That's it, man. That's it.
But there is it's iconic though, because when you go into a diner, like you said, you're always rolling in there with some friends, and yeah, that's the thing for sure. And it's that beautiful moment of like, we're in this together, right? Like we're not here for the food. The food was an excuse for us to hang out.
Yeah, and like even the seating, I think lends to that, right? So the diner seating is never spacious. It's like a booth that's very tight, and that's it. You're in there. You're in the booth. Like I am in this window. I'm just like, all right, how do I fit right into this? Okay, and then it's like 6 of us, and then that's it. You know what I mean? And there's even the tables. They're like, if you go in there with like 10 people, it's just like, the guy's got to go get the 2 extra chairs in the back. He's just, you know what I mean? Or we got to sit in 2 booths. Like sometimes they don't even have that. It's just like, all right, which 4 of us are sitting in this booth and the other 4? You're over there like on the back. Hey man, let me get a little thing. You know what I'm saying? So I love it.
French fries. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing,
man. It's it. They got Jello at the diner. That's another thing too. It's like, what do you have for dessert? A scoop of vanilla, a scoop of chocolate, or Jello? I'm like, I'll have the Jello, man. Jello.
Let's go with that Jello. Red, please. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, red. I mean, what kind of world are we living in where red is not the premium choice Jello?
I love it, dude. I love it. Yeah, this is that's what we're doing here, man. Right? Like it's that same beautiful moment that we're trying to recreate out here. And I I love it, dude, because you and I have had a number of meals together that went way longer than our servers had been happy about.
I've been there. I've seen the way that you scoop your French fries And I've seen the way you cut your pancakes. I've seen it all, man. We've definitely sat down, and I think that's what I love, right? I think with you, I know that I'm gonna get an authentic conversation, and it's gonna be real. And after about the first 30 minutes or so, we carved through like the pleasantries. Oh yeah, hey, how's it going? Good to see you. Yeah, that's great. How about those guys game? Yeah, the Yankees. Oh man, and then it's just like, man, I'm going through some things, bro. Like, can we have this conversation? Yeah, man. Did you know like life is different? It's like did you ever think that Inception could actually exist in our hearts, man? And you're just like, and that's how we get. And I know that sometimes those wait staff are looking at us like, I know this is a 24-hour spot, man, but my shift is over in 6 hours and y'all are still here.
The thing is open here for 24 hours. That doesn't mean you need to stay here for that long.
Right.
Yeah, but actually, yeah. I love it, dude. Yeah, always great conversations, man. And it's interesting. The last time that we broke bread together, we had a really cool conversation that I kind of want to revisit right now, especially with what's going on in the country, right? Because the country is at a place where they're starting to listen a little bit more, because I think quarantines give us a little more time, and it's allowed people to kind of read a little bit more. Though after watching the presidential debate, I don't know how much listening everybody's doing, but we're not touching that with a 10-foot pole, because this isn't dropping for a while. But still, it's interesting, because one thing that you and I had a cool conversation about one time is you talk about this concept of having a hidden curriculum. And you and I both worked in higher. You still work in higher ed. I do a lot of business in higher ed and whatnot, and that's obviously where my roots are. And so, we talk a lot about, why are certain students more successful than others? How do some people come in and just kind of know how to navigate the system and others don't, and whatnot? And how do some of these people slip through the cracks? And you talked about this concept called the hidden curriculum. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, man, and tell us all?
Yeah. So, what happens is, we try to recognize why students don't succeed. So college is this space where, you show up and the ultimate goal is to win. And whatever winning looks like, you didn't show up to college to not improve your life, right? You came, better job, meet new people, better success, graduate school, all of these things. So that's what college, they say that, come to us and we'll guarantee you that you'll be better. And what happens is that so many students are not guaranteed to be better because of what we call the hidden curriculum. So students come in that are not prepared, that are underserved, that come from schools that are not giving them the opportunity to succeed. Then they go into college, and then college says, yeah, here's how you win. Go to the bursar's office. And you're like, what is a bursar? And then they say, go see, I don't know. They other terminology like, FAFSA. Did you fill out your FAFSA form? What is that? And then it's like, it sounds like gibberish, right? And then it's like, yeah, after you've done that, make sure you go to see the TLC office. After them, the OSP office will make sure that you get the CLE people to sign your paper at the AIM. And you're like, I don't know any of these terminologies. And we use this all the time. Even things like student government, when they're like SGA or SGO or whatever like that. All of SGI, all of these things are just acronyms and terminologies that are not openly offered to students. So the hidden curriculum, in essence, is just these items that are part of your day-to-day curriculum of success for a college student that are not openly, readily available to students who don't know. So if you're a first-generation student who has no idea of and no background and no history and come from an institution, a high school that hasn't prepared you, then you walk right into this place with a disadvantage. You're already in second place behind all of these people who had 5 or 6 parents that knew what FAFSA meant, right? And
Yeah.
and that's where we run into the idea. So students can't win if they don't have the advantages that you said you're going to provide them. So I challenge institutions all the time. I go into these schools all the time. I go to my own school and I say, let's get rid of these words and these ideas and let's just call it what it is and help these students out. So, when we start thinking about the climate and of the culture today, a lot of the students that come from institutions like high schools that are not prepared them are Black and brown. And then we start to wonder why there is low enrollment numbers and low retention numbers and why students are not succeeding at the higher rate that other students are. So when you see these Black and brown kids from these poorer areas struggling, it's not because they're Black or brown and struggling. It's because they are just literally unaware of things that are simple to everybody else. And, it's just like you can't go onto a basketball court if you don't know what a traveling rule means, if you don't know what a layup, if you don't know what a bounce pass. So when a coach is telling you, I need you to pass the ball, like give me a chest pass, and you don't know what that means, and they say you can't dribble the ball, but you don't know what dribble means, and they say, shoot the ball, and you don't know what shoot means, that's how impactful the hidden curriculum is. It's that much. It's like saying, go play this sport in another language using terms that you've never heard of and win the game. How can you play like that? So it's our job as educators to assure that the hidden curriculum is made obsolete.
Yeah, man. Powerfully put, brother. I really love the sports analogy, playing a game in another language, right? And even if it's a game you theoretically know, right? Like people know education and a certain extent, but all of a sudden you throw all these crazy terms in there, and it gets way more complicated and confusing, and it's tough. But I agree with you that, it's a lot of Black and brown communities, particularly these areas that have less than enough, that are really kind of behind the eight ball in this particular sense. Why do you think it is that those communities aren't necessarily doing as much prep work for some of their students? Like where's that energy going towards? Because it's obviously going towards something. Tell me a little bit about that, man.
Yeah.
Like,
the energy is going to policing those students, right? That's where it is. All the resources that should be going towards creating more beneficial educational experiences are going to police officers. It's going to individuals who are watching the students. It's going to bars on the windows. And I worked at a high school that was like that. It was this amazing high school. And what I loved about this high school was that it had everything in there. It had a full culinary arts kitchen. It had a full newspaper printing station. It had a full business Bloomberg type technology space. And I was like, man, this is it. So when the school was created, the idea of it was like, we're going to create this amazing group of students. And then I think the neighborhood, before it got fully gentrified, or it reversed, it was gentrified, then it went back, and then it so then what ended up happening was we started seeing a lot of poor kids go to those schools. And then all of a sudden, all in Queens, and all of a sudden all of these police officers started to pack, and they had the metal detectors at the doors. They had police officers and security guards. So, and then you had overpopulation. So you have teachers that are teaching students of 40 students, literally 40 kids in a class. So, the reason why those students are not succeeding is because there are people, and let me tell you, James, there were teachers and guidance counselors. I remember telling students, I had a guidance counselor tell me, listen, because I was doing an after school program. And I was like, listen, I'm going to try and help this young man out. But he was like, man, that guy's going to jail anyways. I don't know why you need to help him out. Damn. And that kid right now has a master's degree in theology. And I think they're from Yale. They went to Yale Theology School. And that kid was poor, was supposed to go to jail, but came to our after school program, was this amazing poet, and took the poetry and then took his home lessons as going to church every Sunday and Wednesday and this, and then channel that. We stayed with him, went to college, boom. Now he's doing what he wants to do.
Hell yeah.
But that's the kid that was going to jail. You know what I'm saying? And I just think about I got in that school because a grant was offered to that school. But if that grant wasn't offered, I don't know if that kid goes to the program. I don't know if that kid gets to college, or if they do get to college, they're not prepared. So that's where the energy is going, man. The energy is going into figuring out how do we police these kids and how do we make sure that they're behaving right, as opposed to making sure that, you know, they have books and classroom settings that are appropriate. And that's why we're doing a disservice to our kids, because we're not allowing them to flourish and be their best. And, you know, and we punish them for rocking kicks. You know, that's why we talked about we wear kicks. As you said earlier, we rock, you know, and the kids were getting punished because their kicks were too bright and things like that. And I'm like, what kind of world are we living in? And so that's what's happening. That's what's happening.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, focusing way more on discipline and way less on dialogue, right? And that's, I mean, we see that in so many different areas of life as well, but it's just a shame because when it happens at that particular phase of life, and as for young men and women that are trying to come up and do right, when it happens, then it stifles, right? It lets individuals know that, like, yo, the bar is set. The bar is going to be set too high for you. And it just puts individuals at this really negative mindset, man. And I love the way that you spoke about it, with just as far as like this story of, you know, just one dude's like, nah, screw that. That kid's a lost cause, right? Like, when do we make the choice to give up on people, right? That's such a terrible move. And when are we so disenfranchised at our work that we decide to give up, right? Like a lot of people have done that in their own jobs, where they're just like, you know what, this job sucks anyway, but at least I got a paycheck so I can ride my snowmobile later. Or right, like, we got something like that. It's like, this is a means to an end. It's why they call it work and not fun. And we let ourselves get into these ruts. And those individuals, though, they rarely recognize the ripple effect that they have, right? Mm-hmm. Because because of the discipline, they're stripping the voices of the individuals that they should be listening to and caring for and setting up for success. But their bitterness and their focus on discipline is really just holding people down. And it's not working.
Yeah. You know, the focus on discipline also just comes from, you know, I mean, it's systemic in nature, right? So the reason you think that you have to discipline is because you've been told that these people are predators, or that they're dangerous, or that they can't learn. And that's just like racism, right? So part of it is also just people just are racist and don't want to say it. And I'm not racist. You are. And even if you aren't racist, you're perpetuating a racist system, right? So as long as you're part of that construct, then you're part of the issue. And, you know, it's like this. You know, when you have a house that has a poor foundation, right? I don't care how many furniture pieces you put in the house. I don't care how much you beautify the lights and how many family dinners you've had in there. If the house has a poor foundation, the house is going to fall. That's it. And the thing is that we are ingrained in this system that is built on a terrible foundation. And people are trying to figure out, you know, how do I just keep putting Christmas tree lights on this? And I'm just like, yo, I don't care how many Christmas tree lights you put on here. This thing is messed up. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, if you walk in and you're like, whoa, what's going on here? This is not right. And they're like, no, it's fine. It's fine. This has worked for us. And I'm like, it's not working. And that's where we are. We're in a place where it's just foundationally problematic. And yeah, you know what I mean? And that's the thing. I think about like giving up. I think people give up before they never even started to give in. You know, they gave up off top. So it's like, it's important. You know, it's funny because I was talking about that. I was just like, you know, in this day and age, for both of us who work in leadership development, I'm like, man, what are we doing? Right? Because I start to look at the people who are my elders in certain spaces, right? Black, white, purple, yellow, green, that are in these major positions, who shall remain nameless, that are just not acting in concert with what we define as leadership. So it makes me wonder what has been defined as leadership to those folks who are in those positions that are succeeding, that are in high level positions, that are making, you know, exorbitant amounts of money. And I'm sitting here telling a student or a young person, you have to be humble, you have to be civil, you have to take care of others, you have to think of the community, you have to be inclusive, you have to be an ally. And none of that seems to be defined as success in this broader conversation. So that's why it's essential to really never give up, because you won't see the fruits of our labors. You know what I'm saying? We won't see it, and we'll see the work, and we'll see it in these small increments. But you can't give up because I mean, you just can't, right? It's like I can't because I'm not trying to see my future kids and my generation and that's coming after me take these L's. Like I still have hope that I can be a change agent that's going to be part of the group that says, when we changed the world, it was because of Jeff's generation, or it was because of James's leadership. It was because of those guys that we're here where we are, and that's why you got to keep doing that work, man.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Keep pressing and keep, I mean, you got to keep banging. Otherwise, the gap gets bigger. And the poor get poorer. Right. And like, we just keep perpetuating the same exact system that we're in. That's just blatantly not working.
Right.
And so when we think about flipping the script, and starting to put in some of the work, right? Like, I think one of the most interesting things one of the most, I guess, vibrant things for me as I've sat in it for the last few months, particularly since the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, since when the conversation just got to a roar, is that one of the things that's hard is as someone who didn't grow up in a space like that, didn't have that kind of an experience, and didn't have anything. First off, it's about realizing that your story is not everybody's story. So you got to get over yourself a little bit, right? You got to broaden your spectrum. Just because you've never left your hometown and haven't seen more and haven't learned more, haven't met more, doesn't mean that doesn't exist, right? So sometimes when we have that conversation with someone who's like, I don't think it's a problem, we sometimes need to respond to them, but, well, what if it was? Then what would you think, right? And start the conversation that way, even if we need to start in a hypothetical place, right? And then we could slowly land the plane. But when we think about the work that needs to be done, and for me, what was overwhelming and what has always been overwhelming about the work is it's like, where do you start? And where is the role, right? It's not like, it's like, well, because a lot of times you're just like that dick in the meeting who's like, well, I think this should change and you should change it. And I'm going to leave now, but change it and you're welcome. Right. And that's what a lot of times this feels like, where it's like, yeah, that should change. Let me send a tweet. Yeah, that should change. Let me post to my Instagram story. Yeah, that is a problem. But what is the next move, right? And so that's sometimes where it gets really daunting, where it's such a big thing. But what is beautiful about you, Jeff, and the work that you put in is that, yes, you're working on dismantling systems, but a lot of the work that you're doing, yes, is from a high level, but it's also from the ground level, and the way that you're having conversations, the way you're pulling the student aside and setting them up with success to get the grant, to get to Yale eventually, right? Like those little baby steps of being persistent with our support with each other, which is something that we all do. We all give up on each other, often too easily. So when we think about the work that you've been doing, man, like that, some of that one-on-one stuff, or just the way that you show up, what are you trying to do, and what's going on? I know this kind of a little bit of what you're talking about in your upcoming book that you got going on too, man, but tell me a little more about it.
Yeah. So, here's the thing. When it comes to this idea of helping people and being a leader and a change agent and all these things, the first thing that I tell everyone is you have to be a person who understands what it means to struggle in solidarity, right? So you cannot act as if you're better than and still think that you are a leader and still think that you can change the world. The moment that you think like that, the moment that your ego allows you, the moment that some title that you were given, the moment that something tells you I'm better than this person who I'm working with or working for, you're out. You're out. And that's it. And that to me is it. And I was a person that used to think like that. I used to walk around gassed, thinking I was the smartest kid in the room, thinking that I was the funniest person, the sharpest, most wittiest, always on point. And I had to strip all of those layers out to be a true. I think that was when it started. I know.
Okay, great. Yeah. No.
Yeah. I said I had to fall back. I had to fall back. And that's what I learned, man. I was just like, man, you know what? I don't think I'm doing it right, because sometimes your natural talent or somebody is in your ear telling you that you can be the change of the world, all these things, right? And I had to really look at myself and say, I gotta release this ego, right? And you have to really kind of like, you got to almost like dodge yourself, right? You got to, like, your ego's pulling up, and you've got to really be this person that's moving out of the way of that, because the moment that it hits you is when, you start to feel good. Kanye said, it's hard to be humble when you're stunting on a Jumbotron, right? Yep. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. It is. Mm-hmm. And that Jumbotron for us becomes those people patting us on the back. That Jumbotron is people saying, man, you're so brilliant. That Jumbotron is people saying, wow, you should be the director, the executive dean, the vice president, the leader, the whatever. All of those things, those are the Jumbotrons for people such as ourselves. I had to like break the Jumbotron, right? It's like, is it 1984, that old Apple commercial where the woman is running through the thing and then she breaks the stuff. This is for our older listeners here. Where you got to kind of break the Jumbotron of your life. You got to really stop staring into the camera and start staring at the people. And that's really where the work starts to happen. When you start looking at the people and you become one of them, then the conversations are easy. Then it's just like, I'm talking to myself. I'm having conversations. I'm looking at people who look like me, act like me, think like me, and they're different than I am. And that's where the work comes in. So for me, being able to have those one-on-one conversations with students happens when I start to say, it's not about me, it's about us. And that's the toughest thing for people who are talented to do. Like, I'm not going to act like this is some easy thing, but it's hard when you have to look at people who you might have some intellectual advantage over them, or you might have some privilege over them, or you might have more money than they do. And you still have to be able to walk into those rooms and say, yo, I'm just like you. And how does that? And then when you're in that room, that's when you start to use all of those abilities that you've learned and you've cultivated over the years, and those conversation pieces and those, that community development and that leadership development, all that stuff starts to ooze in. And that's why I think pop culture is so important, because pop culture, if done right, is the ultimate equalizer, right? Like, so I can walk into a room with a bunch of different people and we're all talking about how the Knicks are trash. And I get, I start to cry at first. Yeah, and then after I've wiped the tears away, it's true. It's a true
Knicks fan. It's sad, but true.
You know it, right? Yeah, but that's where it is, right? So I could walk into a room with people who don't know who I am. And if I hear them talking about the Knicks, I know I can get in there. Or if they're talking about a TV show, I know I can get in there. Or if they're talking about a musician, I know that I can get in there. And we have to kind of be the pop culture individuals of life, right? We have to be pop culture, but not pop. We have to be actual culture that changes and brings people together. And that's what I've learned, man. I've just learned, like, you got to really just turn the lights off for a little bit and just realize, like, when the lights are off, I don't know who's talking. I don't know who looks like what. We're all in the same boat together.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. It's funny when you were talking, it reminded me of, I think it was Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg. He and I are on a last name basis.
Yeah,
I think it was, I think it was Zuckerberg who, I think he donated something like $200 million. Wasn't it to a school district in Newark?
Newark, yeah.
Right. Yep. And he said, yeah, and so he sends all this money over there, and they build this whole team, right? Like, to try to get all these individuals involved, of like all these education experts and get a new superintendent out here. Let me get all these consultants. Let me get all this, let's get all the high-end folks, and let's chuck some money at the problem, and let's figure it out, and let's fix Newark, right? And it bombed.
Yep.
It bombed incredibly hard. Now, that's a drop in the bucket for Mr. Zuckerberg, but still, it's not a drop in the bucket in these kids' lives. And so one of the main reason why it didn't work is because what you were just talking about is that no one went in and had the conversations. They all just said, studies have shown students succeed when this. Cool, do that. Studies have said that we need more funding here. Cool, fund that. Studies have shown that cool, do that. And they went to all these studies, all of these external places, and they never talked to the individuals involved. And it just absolutely flopped.
Yeah.
And there's so many people who are just out here trying to fix things, when they haven't had a conversation with someone who is affected by whatever it is, whatever the atrocity is, the injustice, or whatever, right? And no one's having those conversations with individuals to be like, what do you need? What would help? What would, what does change look like for you all, right? And we're missing the boat on having that conversation. I feel like that example ties into a lot of what you were just sharing, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing is that, if you can't, Lenny, from, our boy Lenny from Trill or Not Trill, he always talks about his grandmother used to say, when you come to the dinner table, you got to bring something with you, right? And that doesn't mean that you have to bring the turkey, and it doesn't mean that you have to bring the mac and cheese. Sometimes you just got to bring some napkins, or you've got to bring some utensils, or you've got to bring the tablecloth. And that's what happens, right? Is that we think that we can just show up to dinner and just pull up and say, I'm here to eat. And what's good? And that's not how it works, right? You got to be able to. That's why I love potlucks, right? Potlucks to me are the best because it starts to put you in a place where you're just like, I can't show up empty-handed. I have to contribute to this community situation. And even if that means I got to go buy an Entenmann's cake, take it out of the take it out of the box, slice it up and put it in my own little container and be like, listen, it's Entenmann's, but it looks nice. Then or front like it's my cake, whatever. Right. It's just like, I'm here to contribute something. Mm-hmm. And, so many people today, man, they just want to either show up and be like, I bought bought dinner for everybody. That's just not, you buying dinner for everybody. That's just the same thing like, at the diner. It's just like, we're not here just to eat, man. You know what I mean? We're not here just to consume the food that you got us. Like, we're here to build. And I think that's exactly what happened with like things like with these major organizations that are dumping all this money into these communities. They just don't care about anything beyond the dollar.
Right. It's a flex.
It's performative flex, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Big performative. Yeah. Performative allyship at its finest. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's interesting though, because when we think about having conversations with folks and starting to get out there, right? And starting to put ourselves in conversations that we've never been in before. There's a lot of insecurity that happens. But just in general, when we're kind of not known to each other, there's a lot of insecurity that happens and people kind of show up, walls up. What's going to happen? Am I going to be accepted? What's going on? Am I in the wrong place? Are people going to think that I'm trying to be something that I'm not? Or people thinking that I'm trying to come in here and do the wrong thing, right thing, whatever. There's just all these thoughts that swirl. And the biggest thing, and this is something that you and I both love to talk about, the biggest thing is just showing up as you. Like, how can we show up as fellow human beings talking to fellow human beings? Like you said earlier, right? It's not about being some hero who's going to come in and save the day. People don't need saving. And the fact that you look at people like they need saving, quite frankly, is extremely rude, right? and you just missed it. You have missed it, right? And so take your cape off, Superman, right? And let's have a conversation, right? And so that authenticity is something that we have always bonded over in the way that we communicate to other folks, because we've seen the way that people show up when you are your authentic self, as opposed to when you're trying to show up as something that you're not, right? We all know the phrase, fake it till you make it. But if all you ever do is fake it, you never really make it. And we see that time and time again with these folks trying to have these conversations, but they're not having them from an authentic place. They're having them from who can I write the check to? How can I save this? Or how can I whatever, right? Or I'm not the problem. I got a gay friend. I got an Asian girlfriend. I got it, right? Like, I know everything. They're missing it. And the authenticity is powerful. And that's something that you speak a lot about as well.
Yeah. So, it's like this. So some tips, right? I'll give y'all some tips if you're having those anxiety filled spaces, and it's real. Like, that's a real and actual thing. And the first thing that you really have to do is, it's really two basic things. Number one is, can you find somebody who can walk you into the room with, right? So it's harder to walk into these spaces as a complete stranger, because it's just impossible for you to it's very close to impossible for you to really engage unless somebody can vouch for you. And it doesn't have to be a strong vouch, but just somebody who's just like, hey, this is Jeff. And then you then have to, at that point, just shut up. Just shut up and listen and watch and learn and observe. Like you said, this is not Superman. This is just fall back. I'm a guest in y'all home, and I just want to be a part of this group. And then you, like double dutch, I always talk about double dutch. Then you have to find an opportunity to, let me see. And then you jump in. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got it right. You watch the rope and you're just like, all right, who got it? Boom. And then you jump right in. And that's where we have to really get, that's how you become a real person that can change the game. Like, I watched, there's some pictures, some meme that was going on, and it was like these men, all of these like 20 men were the men who made the decision on women's reproductive systems. And I'm just like, there's not a woman in the room. I'm like, how are we having conversations about women and there's no women in the room? How can you have conversations about black people with no black people in the room? How do you have these conversations without the voices in the room? Not only should the voices be in the room, they should be the majority of the voices in the room. Mm-hmm. And in those spaces, you just have to shut up. I remember when we were working together, I think it was, I don't know if you were there, but I was working at NJCU, and I got invited. This might have been after you. I was invited to a Muslim Students Association meeting. And, so I walk in there. And there's black people in the room. There's young people. There's all types of people in the room. So I'm not an unfamiliar looking face. And I sit back, and I have no clue that the men are supposed to sit on this side. The women are supposed to sit on this side. This is the prayer before like all of these things. And I could have easily came in there. What's up, everybody? Hi, I'm the director of that. So what's going on? I just sat back and said, I'm a guest here, and let me just watch what's going on. And then I was like, y'all gonna have to somebody's gonna have to bring me in. I'll say something, but if y'all bring me in, and then they did something, and they were like, they did an icebreaker, and it was like, Jeff, do you want to? And I was like, yes. And I was like, all right, icebreakers, I know how to do that. Let's go. Let's play. You know what I'm saying? Let's play this game. And then it was like, boom, let's have conversations. Let's do this. And then you know what ends up happening? It informs your decisions, because I was planning to do a program to bring in this Muslim documentary about, I forget what it was. And then I was like, listen, I'm going to do this. But then before I did it, I said, let me talk to these students first. And then when I spoke to the students, they were like, yeah, I don't think this is going to be a documentary that's going to be appreciated by our community. But here are some other options of things that might work. And I was just like, thank God that I talked to them first, because I would have played that and I would have been mad at somebody for not coming to my program, not recognizing that I was actually probably offending somebody or not presenting people in the right light. But
or people get defensive in that place, right? And they're like, like you should thank me for trying, right? Like I'm trying to help you hear clearly, right? Like people get real defensive sometimes in that place.
Right. I was just trying to support them. I was trying to help them, man. And now they mad at me. And now you get into this space that's just toxic as all what, you know what I'm saying? Yep. It's the worst. It's the worst.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But I completely agree. And that's a beautiful example. I know I felt that way when I joined the gospel choir at Clemson. I was just super excited to be, I love to sing, and singing is therapy for me. So even if I wasn't necessarily down with the religion side of it, as hard as some of the other individuals were, singing is my church. Singing is spiritual to me, right? And it takes me to a cool place. And so I don't really often care what the words are, as long as they're not atrocious. But it was just like, no, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna sing. Like, this is what I'm gonna do.
You have a
right?
lovely voice,
there was this moment. What'd you say?
I said you have a lovely voice, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Yes,
Shout out to the karaoke. But it was until this moment, like maybe like 2 months in, and I had an RA who was in the gospel choir, and so he vouched for me. So that's what enabled me to kind of come through and sit down. But not a lot of people talked to me, and I was like, that's okay. that's, I'm not going to force myself into conversations. I'm not going to, tell everybody, well, I went through 4 levels of diversity training, so I think I deserve to be in the building here. Right. And it's like, no, let me just sit here. And there came a time where they broke us up into parts to make sure everybody was on point. And they broke us up. And so there were 3 of us over there. And it was the first time that the whole gospel choir heard me sing. And in that exact moment, I learned that white boy was a compliment, because everybody's like, oh, okay, white boy. And it was this beautiful moment. And from that time on, it was totally different when I saw those folks around campus or whatnot. But you got the double Dutch analogy is perfect, of like, you got wait for your moment.
Yeah. And when you wait for that moment, when you jumping into double Dutch, it's not just you're aimlessly jumping in, right? It's like you're watching the rope, you're timing the rope, you're waiting for the rhythm, you're watching other people, you're waiting for people to encourage you. If you've never jumped rope before, there's somebody that's just like, now, like, that support system. So it's just like, you can't just run aimlessly into a rope. You gotta really just time it and work with it and feel it and love. You know what I mean? I just love double Dutch for that reason, and it just works in so many conversations, because we want to just do that. Like, this world lends itself to just jumping in, right? Just go, post this, say that, tweet this, talk, just go. And that's not how it works, man. You know what I mean? It's not, you're not going to win. Your heart's not going to grow like that, and your community's not going to develop if you're just aimlessly always just powering through and not doing the work.
Yep. And that hashtag, that black square, should not absolve you of the work, right? Like, so
I get it.
I think the opposite of waiting timing for double Dutch is that moment where you walk into a spider web that you didn't know was there.
Man, that's like one of the 7 scariest things, man. That's just like heart. I'm like scared just thinking about that, man. I definitely just shuddered.
So one of the most powerful things that you do, Jeff, that I've always respected you for, is you focus a lot on the power of relatability. The power of relatability. And relatability is important because when we see ourselves in someone else, we believe that we can, right? It's a really powerful tool. And so, so for you, whenever I made the jokes about it earlier in your introduction, but like, you and I would legit like come through looking crispy fresh into work, and not crispy fresh like crazy 3-piece suits, perfectly ironed. It was like, no, we're coming in, me and my Kangols. I had an unfortunately large Kangol collection, right? And I'm matching the Kangols with my sneakers and the little polo horse, right? And and you're coming in, you have more blazers than J.C. Penney, and way better also. And you're like, but like, we would show up. And we would show up in a place that was a conversation piece, but and you would always be rocking J's, or obviously your world famous Prestos, or whatnot. And so and I wore a bunch of different kinds of sneakers too, but it was beautiful. It was beautiful because it sparked conversation. And not in a negative way, right? Not like, yo, you're looking sloppy. But talk a little bit about why you made that choice to kind of dress the way you did and kind of carry yourself the way you did, and in the workplace.
Yeah, number one reason is because I work with students, and I just think, they're the number one reason why I'm there. And for me to not be a person that can stand out to students, I didn't care what I look like. I didn't care about what the dean said behind closed doors about my suits or my jackets or what. I didn't care about any of that. I cared about what the students were thinking about. So when the students saw like, man, this guy's rocking some Chucks or some Jordans or some sneakers with his green blazer with some green Prestos, I'm like, yo, I want to like talk to that guy. And for me, the main reason was because of students. That's number one. And I think you got to be you. I don't know why we're always so afraid to be ourselves fully. I know why. I know exactly why we're afraid to be ourselves. But I think that's the thing that we have to start to embrace even more. And, that was years ago. And, even before I worked with you, I was at another institution previous to that. And I used to have a big afro. And I had a boss that used to tell me like, yo, if you keep wearing this afro, you're never gonna grow as a professional. You're never gonna find other positions. You know that, right? And I was like, I don't know if that's true, man. I'm just letting you know, if you want to move up the ranks here, then this is what you have to do. And then you know what happened? I didn't get a job. I remember I applied for a promotion there, didn't get the job, and that boss was the one who made the decision. And I ended up resigning. Like literally, I didn't get the job. They gave it to somebody who was like had less experience. It was like this big conversation, and I just left. I said, you know what? I'm out, because that's I'm not going to stand for that. And that's how I got to NJCU. And when I got there, that was another thing too, right? So you being who you were was important as well, because it made me say, listen, there's somebody else here that's wearing purple shoes. You know what I mean? And I'm like, well, if he's wearing purple shoes, then I'm busting out the collection as well. And that to me, I think is one, why we got along so well, but also why students resonated with us as well. You know what I'm saying? And that's important. And so, yeah. So, I mean, for me, the reason why I did it was because of students. And I also want to just embrace my authentic self. We live in a world where we are always told, don't wear your hair like this. Don't put those types of earrings on. Why do you have, your colorful pants on and things like that? But it doesn't matter if you're doing a good job, because at the end of the day, that's really what matters. If I was doing a really poor job and I was wearing orange pants, then I can see like, yo, listen, man, you need to put some more effort in your work and less in your pants and in your outfits. You know what I'm saying? But when you can wear whatever you want. That's what I tell people. I'm like, if you're really dope at what you do, you can wear whatever you want. You can pull up into whatever meeting you want if your work is that good. And not to toot my own horn, but the work was really good. I really took my time to cultivate good work so that I could have even more room to do that type of, to wear those type of clothes and be that type of style.
Yeah. It goes back to that iconic Steve Martin quote, right? Of be undeniably good. Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of, I mean, what we're talking about right now is a little bit about what the book is about, correct? We wear kicks to work. Why is this such an important topic that you were like, you know what? I'm going all in. I'm writing a book. Because it's one thing to be like, this is how I carry myself. It's another thing to be like, no, we're writing a whole book about this. Tell us a little more about why does it matter so much that the book needed to happen?
Yeah. Let me tell you, James. I'll tell you, I keep it 100 why we wrote the book, right? The book was written because educators don't have swag, right? And they just, a lot of them don't. My peers, my friends, my colleagues, a lot of them don't have swag, or they're hiding their swag because they feel as if they can't represent it in an educational setting. And we wear kicks to work. The subtitle is when pop culture and leadership interject, right? When those two worlds come together. And the reason when pop culture and education and leadership meet, there you go. I have to learn my own title. And so the reason why, we're never the coolest people in the room because the students are, but we're still cool. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. And we wear kicks to work tells every educator from top to bottom, it is okay to bring some energy into these students' lives. It's okay to be your authentic self and not hide certain things. It's okay to have conversations about, sneakers or Taylor Swift or the Knicks or whatever. You can do that. You're allowed to do that. And don't hide that. You're allowed to put that in your curriculums. You're allowed to make sure that the students are allowed to talk about it too, because the text is really culturally responsive based. So therefore, the students' voices are entrenched in all of the work that we do. So if you're not bringing that to the table, then you're not doing a good job. And I just hate seeing educators who don't have it trying to be their best, trying to, educators that don't have it trying to show these students what it means to be a good student. I'm like, y'all don't even know what are we doing? You're not even being yourself, but you're telling this kid to be themselves. Nah, that's not how it works. So when We Wear Kicks to Work was written, it was really all about that. So the book has all that. We talk about things from Marshawn Lynch to Marshawn Lynch to Cardi B to Jordans. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's just essential, for us to be able to integrate all of those things into the work that we do, from hip hop to movies and all that. And sometimes even one thing I want to say is also, it was important for us also to write this because I think people see Trill or Not Trill in part because of our name, but they see myself as well and my in the organization as individuals who are just hip hop. And we get placed in this box, especially Black people who love pop culture get placed in this box that the only thing that you like about pop culture is basketball and rap. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just like, my favorite TV shows is still Seinfeld. It's still, my second favorite TV show is The Different World, and my third favorite TV show is The Office. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I'm here. I'm watching all of these things, and and y'all are just gonna have to recognize that it's okay for us to be our authentic selves at all times, all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you wrote a book too. Sorry, James, but you wrote a book about authenticity. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
you know the work too. So that's why I just think like it's essential for us to just be who we are. Like, let's cut it out. You know what I'm saying? And when you are who you are, also, you start to see the realness of people, and that allows you to either say, this person is a sucker or not. I want us to be authentic. I love when people are themselves. You know what I'm saying? When people are like wildly racist, I'm happy that you're wildly racist because now I know that you're wildly racist. Or I love when people are like wildly, encouraging, because now I know this is somebody that I can go to that's going to help me, encourage others. So, be yourself so that it's also an eye opener for all of us that are around you.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. It also gives people permission. It gives people permission to not carry around all of this pressure and all of this burden, right? You're like on the release valve, and you're giving people the thing. It was like, hey, just drop your shoulders. Like, yeah. we good, right? Like, crack your neck 1 or 2 times. And what a gift to give to others, to be like, listen, I see what you're trying to do, but we ain't trying to do that here. Right. And like, as far as like, we're not putting on a show, you can just show up however you want to show up. Like I've had a place where a corporate event that I had to speak at, and I showed up wearing a bow tie, looking fresh with the tie and the blazer and the slacks and the nice shoes. And the guy pulled me aside and he was like, listen, man, can you do me a favor? You lose the tie, you're just going to turn a lot of people off. We don't really do that around here. And I was like, thank you.
Right.
Right. Like, what a gift. And so, yeah, some of those moments are really powerful, and it's just a gift to give to somebody else that, like, hey, just show up as you. Like, you're exactly where you need to be right now. Yes, we're going to continue to work. Yes, we're going to continue to hustle, but you're right where you need to be right now, and don't think anything less of that, because otherwise you're going to start showing up with perfectionism on the brain, control on the brain, and inauthenticity on the brain, and it's just not going to work.
Yeah, and like you said, I'm that's really beautiful that guy told you that, right? Because then you're in a tough spot. So, we've traveled, both of us, and have met in higher ed, particularly, so many people who are just marginalized because they can't be themselves, and they're afraid to talk about who they are, and they can't be who they want to be in a room because of a supervisor or because of a boss. And we've probably both have worked for people like that, who are just like, don't be you, and don't be you, and you is a problem, and you is not a problem. You know what I'm saying? You is not a problem. Like, you is who you are. So let's be our best selves. And that's how you gain the trust of others. You can't work in a business with people and not be a person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. And that brings up an interesting point, Jeff, because I've always admired you. I think you know that. I've told you that before. If this is the first time you've heard it, then get over yourself. No, just playing. No, this is the first time you heard it, man. Seriously, please hear that. But I've always admired you and the way that you carry yourself. And there's been parts of you that I've looked up to, because you talked about it before, right? We have this swagger, and swagger equals confidence, right? And so like, it goes back to that old line in hip hop, whereas I'm not I'm not cocky, I'm confident. So when you tell me I'm the best, it's a compliment. And
Right.
and so you carry yourself with this great swagger and confidence, and you're always put together, and in many ways you feel unshakable. But I know that's not true. That can't be true, obviously, right? As a fellow human being. And that's not who you show. You don't necessarily project this person that's always perfect, but you are very wise, right? You're very, the way that you speak, others gravitate towards it. And it's really beautiful. But I've often wondered about you, like, what are those moments where you're like, yo, I'm actually kind of nervous about this? Like, what are some insecurities that you have that you carry around that that sometimes show up for you? Do you have anything like that?
No, I don't have any at all. No, I'm just
Great.
kidding.
All right, cool. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in, everybody.
um, I'll tell you a couple. So number one is I get nervous every time I'm about to speak. Literally, I'm still nervous. I was nervous before coming on to this, and I'm like, I'm about to just talk to my friend, and we're gonna have a really cool conversation. And I was still like, you get this like tingle, and I get that before every talk at a speech tonight, right before this, and same thing, like all these energies. So I'm still nervous about that and I think that nerve comes from, I really am. I really want to help people. I really want to help people.
Mm-hmm.
And I get really nervous that I'm not helping enough. And I know that sounds like this weird, like job interview answer. But
I just work so hard.
Yeah, I just, I'm so passionate that I just can't, but I really get scared sometimes that I'm not doing the job well enough. Mm-hmm. And that's always been something for me. That's number one, is that, I grew up in a Haitian household, and growing up in a Haitian household, education was number one and success was number two. It's just be your best. We're going to have to fight through all of this. We're fighters, and I just always used to think, man, I don't know if I'm not doing it well enough. And I used to, and I still have that feeling every now and then. But, it for so many years, I was just like, man, I probably should have done this. I should have done this. Why did I go this route? And, I remember I was a rapper for a long time, and I was just like, I should have never quit rapping because that was going to be it. And then I was a spoken word artist, and I was successful in that space. And then I stopped doing that, and I was like, man, that was supposed to be it. And I always felt as if those were things that I dropped the ball on, and I always felt like this wasn't, I missed it. I missed my mark. And that was scary. It was scary, man. It was scary because then you get caught in this space where you're just like, damn, I did all this and this is where I am. Man, I was supposed to do this. And, I was like a superstar leader in college, and I was supposed to ascend into these things. And, 5 years later, you're working as a hall director at a college, and you're just thinking like, damn, did I go to school to be a hall director? And there's no shade to being a hall director, but at that moment, you're living on a college campus. You're not making the money you want. You're not reaching the audience you thought you could. I went to grad school. I'm just thinking like, damn, I can't believe it. And then the game changed a little bit. And it really wasn't until recently, right? Really wasn't until recently that I said, you know what? I think you're doing okay. But that for me, James, has always been was the fear that I just wasn't doing enough, and I wasn't hitting my mark and making people proud and hoping, and social media came along, and then social media doubled downs on that. It makes you feel like, damn, how come this person has more followers, or man, how come this person gets to speak on like the Breakfast Club, and here I am, writing, so, what I mean? And it was just so. That was it, man. I mean, that's my biggest insecurity, and it exists a little bit still. Yeah. Is that I'm not going to reach and make the impact that I know I have the ability to. But now I believe it. I think it's just now I know I have it, and it's just keep going, and you'll get it. And at the end of the day, you start to realize that your impact of one person is so much more. It's so valuable. And I tell that story because the reason I'll tell you this is how to close this piece real quick, is that for me, it was reading about Harriet Tubman. And Harriet Tubman, I found out, if you were to guess, I always ask people, how many trips do you think Harriet Tubman made throughout the her time on the Underground Railroad? Like how many visits or trips did she make back and forth? If you had to take a guess,
like 10 to 15.
right? 10 to 15, right? So 10 to 15 to me sounds low, right? In my heart, I was like, she had to make 50 easy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In her time, I mean, she had to make, and she made under 20 trips. So you're right. Like, you know what I mean? She made like about 17 to 20 trips, 12
The
to
only
20.
reason I guess 10 to 15 is because you set it up in the way you did. And I was like, it's
like
no
that,
way
right?
as high as I actually think it is. So let me try to Price is Right the number. I'll go low so I can still get credit.
$1. $1, Bob.
$1.
And
one trip.
Yeah, but that's it. One trip. She made one trip. You're right. You didn't go over. But yeah, like once I learned that, I was like, damn, you know what? She only made that many trips. And when I learned that, I was like, man, then, you know, your legacy means more than what you think it is. And that's where I started to gain a little bit more confidence and start to understand, like, it's okay not to be here, because here, wherever you are, up, down, middle, it counts that much more. So, you know, that's how I kind of was able to get out of that. But that was it for a very, very long time. I was like, man, I didn't make it. You know?
I'm curious, man. Thank you for your vulnerability. Just like Deb said, thank you for your vulnerability in that moment. But I'm curious to go one layer deeper. How did it show up? Like, how did that manifest itself in your work? Was it, I'm gonna do what I can, but then when I get home, I'm gonna beat myself up because I didn't do enough? Is it were you waiting for someone to say, "Hey, I'm proud of you"? Like what were some of those things that you would do in some of those tougher times?
Yeah, well, number one was comparing myself to others, and that was the first thing. So I would come home and then I would look at other people's work and just be beating myself up, like you said, thinking like, and I don't know if I beat myself up as much as I would get jealous and get angry. And I found myself just being mad at like these other speakers, or not even speakers at the time, but these other writers and these other figures. And I'm just like, how did he get this? That's not fair. I'm better than him. And you start to look at your ego starts to kick up, and then you just get in this really dark space where you're just not even thinking about the things that you need to do or want to do, but you're thinking about other people. And you don't know what their journey was. I had no clue what these people's journeys were, but I was just like, you know, and then you start to doubt yourself. And then, you know, what happens is you start to go do things that you probably shouldn't be doing. So then you get to a point where like, man, maybe I should be a rapper again. And then you go write some rhymes and you start doing something and you're just like, I don't know if I'm as good as I once was 15 years ago. And then, you know, you go write some books. And, you know, let me tell you, I've written 5, now 6 books. And I'll tell you the story. So my first book I wrote was called Do Not Hold Doors, and it crushed. I was like, it was independently published. I had a speaking tour. I was all over the country, going to colleges, all these poetry joints nationwide. And I was like, yo, I'm that dude. I told y'all I was nice and nobody could see me. Then I got a little crazy, right? And I don't want to say crazy. Then I got a little funky with it. And my second book was called, and this is where it started to get weird, Jay. So the second book was called Haiku from the Home of Reverend Mofo Jones, right?
Yep.
And I said, I'm going to write a book of haiku poems. And then so that first book, I sold probably like 5,000 independent copies. And I was like rocking. That second book, I think I sold literally 80. And I was just like, wow. Okay.
Shout out to mom, though. Shout out to
right.
Mom.
Mom bought 14 of them, right? And I'm just like, damn, this kind of sucks. And then I wrote a third book called We Can See Your Privates. And surprisingly, yeah, right. Another book of haikus. Surprisingly, I don't know if 10 people bought that book. It was just like nobody bought it. And now I'm like looking at myself thinking like, damn, you know, this is not, and you just start to get into this place where you're just like, you start to create things that you think are good, but you're not doing it in the essence of why you're supposed to be doing the work. And that's what it is. You just get caught up, man. So I just remember being so down on myself and just being like, man, I shouldn't write poetry anymore. And, you know, we were talking about that offline, right? About poetry. And and that was it. Like, We Can See Your Privates was like, I'm done. I'm not writing poems again, ever. And I stopped. And then I wrote a book called Deconstructing Ratchet.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really fun. I had so much fun writing that, but it did okay. But it was still a book of haikus. So I wrote that book, and I was just like, all right, maybe not. But then I was like, man, I'm done. I'm done with poetry again, because I just didn't have the energy. I didn't see the success. I started watching my other peers who were like on I remember watching a friend of mine on Good Morning America and just being so angry that they were performing on Good Morning America. And I go back and thinking like, man, I was rocking with you back in the day. I went to school with J. Cole, and I remember doing open mics with J. Cole and just looking at him. And now, for years, I'm like, damn, I can't believe if I kept rapping, would I have been J. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's where you exist in those spaces. For those that are listening and watching, that's how you gotta get out of there. You gotta get out of that comparison. You gotta run your own race. You know what I'm saying? Because that's why they say they put the covers on the horses' faces, right? Because they don't want the horses to know how the other horses are doing. Just run your race. And if you run your race at its best, you'll be successful and you'll be great and you'll impact. And I wasn't thinking like that at all, man. I was like, take these flaps off my eyes. I need to see who is doing what. And it's just, you don't produce your best if you're thinking about other people. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so that's how I dealt it. I was just like mad. It was a lot of anger, a lot of like just jealousy. And you had to just really sit back and say, you know what, let me just do this on my own, and let me do this with my people, and let me rock out, because that's what's gonna work. But it was hard, man. It was really tough, because when you believe that you're great, you know what I'm saying, because you think that you're great, and that's the only reason that you believe that you're great, not because you've done anything that's worthwhile, or because people are feeding you some things. Then it just, it crushes you, man. But, you got to run your own.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. I never thought about the horse blinders. That's a really powerful analogy, like run your own race. I like that one. I'm probably going to steal it. And
it's terrible. It's terrible. It's not mine. So, you can have it. I don't know. Stole it from somebody else.
But it's interesting because, something you and I have touched a little bit on in our conversations, and I love to talk about on here, is this concept of legacy. And legacy is powerful. And me, I think for me, I often struggle with this balance between being present and also legacy. Being present and also legacy. It's a tough thing because I don't want to miss a moment, but at the same time, what am I building towards? What am I building for? And it's tough because every single thing that comes out, this podcast is dropping next week, right? Again, I don't know when this episode's going to air, and we'll find out. But this podcast is dropping next week, and I'm like, okay, here's how I can get on iTunes New and Noteworthy. Okay, here's how I can get onto this list, and how can I work this system, and how can I do this, and how can I do that, right? And it's like, and it's also like, okay, well, look at this podcast. They did this, and they have this, so I should do that. And you just start to try to run somebody else's race, like you said.
Yep.
It's not going to work, right? Like businesses that are created to beat other businesses aren't successful. Businesses that are created because there's a problem that they're excited about solving are successful, right?
Yeah.
But if the problem that you're trying to solve is that you want to beat this other business, that's not going to work, right? Bitterness is never the end game. And so when we think about this moment of what are we chasing? What are we going after? There's a story that I'm reminded of that I think Jimmy V told, a former NC State coach, and some others, where he talks about this greyhound. You're talking about horses, I'll talk about doggies. So there's this greyhound, and the greyhound's winning all these races, right? It's incredible, the top of its class. It's amazing. It wins all of these races, and then one day the greyhound just quits cold turkey. Like, I'm done. And the owner's like, whoa, what? like, what's the matter? Like, are you happy? And the greyhound's like, yeah, I'm good. The greyhound's like, and the owner's like, well, don't you like winning? And the greyhound's like, yeah, I love winning. I'm very good at what I do. And the owner's like, well, don't I treat you right? Is it me? And the guy's like, no, I love you. You're my best friend. No, this is a great relationship. And the owner's like, so what is it? And the greyhound's like, I just found out that little white rabbit that I chase around the track isn't real. And it's this beautiful moment of what are we chasing? Right. And if we're chasing, and this is a story that I'm now telling myself as I'm a pharmacist, I give out the drugs, but now I'm gonna try to take one too. Right. And this is that whose approval am I chasing? Whose validation am I seeking in order to believe that I have made it, that I am successful, that this product is good enough, that my book is good enough, that any of those kind of things. And it's a tough place to be when you think about, what is the place that we're trying to leave in this world? Because yes, the lives that we impact on one-on-one bases are really beautiful and powerful, and it matters. But I also know that I'm excited to impact more than one person. But who am I to be like, that's not good enough that you only impacted one life? It's a fascinating balance in my head of what's going on and how do we determine that we are on the right authentic path and doing it for the right reason. And a lot of times there's just so many things with, like you mentioned, social media. It just clouds up the vision, and it's complicated for sure.
Yeah. Somebody once told me, they said, who came first, Hilton or Marriott? Do you know?
I do not.
I have no idea, right? I have no clue either. And so the reason I tell that story is because, Hilton didn't stop because Marriott existed, and Marriott didn't stop because I don't know. Whoever came second wasn't like, well, Hilton's there, so we're done. You know what I'm saying? They continue to do it. But here's the thing. Here's how we flip it. So Hilton and Marriott, whoever came second, continued to do the work, continued to build. And then they just started, listen, we're the same. I'm first, you're second. I'm second, you're first, right? Mm-hmm. And then what ends up happening next is that the legacy starts to look one exact type of way. And then that's where we run into problems. But then here's what happened. I don't know who came first, Marriott or Hilton. But I tell you who's here now, and that's Airbnb, right? And now this is where the game changes. Hotels are going to probably be around forever. They'll be around.
They'll be fine.
They'll be all right. Airbnb is also going, that the idea of Airbnb is also going to be here forever now as well. If you think about legacy, there's two ways to create the legacy. Your legacy is either you look at the path that somebody else has created and said, I'm going to be as excellent as you are, and I'm going to be part of that excellence. So that doesn't mean, sometimes you think the legacy has to be completely different than, I have to be my own individual self. That's not always true. You're not always going to be the first author. You're not going to be the first speaker. You're not going to be the first hotel chain. So, but you can't be, your legacy won't be amazing. You won't be left unless you're as excellent as those folks, right? Because whatever that fourth tier hotel is, we don't know. We don't know them. But we know Hilton, we know Marriott, and maybe Sheraton, right? Maybe we know those three. I don't even know. Sheraton's probably not, But anyhow. Right?
This
but
podcast is sponsored by Marriott and Hilton, by the way.
Okay, so there it is, right? So there you go. I'm trying to get you the sponsorship right here, man. Right? So you can do that. So if you go that route of borrowing ideas and being like somebody else, you better be the best at it as well. Where people don't know which one of you came first. That's how good you are. I don't know who came first, but I know that they're both monsters. So there's that route. Your other legacy is you become Airbnb, where you fill in, you say, this is wrong, that doesn't work, this doesn't help people can use this, I can create that, I'm different. And then you just become this dynamo that completely shifts the game. And there was a point where Airbnb was it, right? Airbnb was making more money than some of these hotel chains, right? So that's one of the things that you have to really look at is like, I have to be so different that I shifted the entire game, right? That it would disruptive innovation, as they call it. You got to be somebody that says, man, I've never seen anything like this. And that's how I think. I think in that route. I think of the route of, I hear y'all, I like this, but I'm about to be so different than everybody else. But that doesn't condemn the people who are not like everybody else. There's somebody who watches Tony Robbins and says, I'm going to be the next Tony Robbins. And that's fine. But you better be the next Tony Robbins. Because if you're not, then you're going to fall short of that legacy. And that legacy is always that much harder to do because you are always chasing that white rabbit that's not really real. You know what I'm saying? You'll never catch Tony Robbins because he's Tony Robbins, and that's going to be hard to do. But you can always be yourself. But when you're yourself, you have the opportunity to change the world even more. So I like legacy in two different frameworks, but for me, the real legacy is that second one where you just change the game. And you know, are people talking about you? And that's the common thing about legacy, right? Are people talking about you after you left the room? Right, you know what I mean? And to me, you got to always be thinking about your legacy. Every time I speak, legacy's on my mind. Every time I do any action, legacy's on my mind. If I'm writing a word down, I'm thinking about my legacy. Like in this conversation, I'm thinking, if you watch this conversation, you're going to be thinking about, man, this guy, the legacy's part of it. So when people hear me speak, I'm always like on 100. Like I feel like I'm always yelling. I'm always just passionate because this is big stakes for me. You know what I mean? Like conversations are big stakes for me. This is not just, let's just have this talk. I'm trying to change your life, and I'm hoping that you can change my life in the same way. It's reciprocal. You know what I mean? So for me, that's the work. You can't be out here thinking that everything is average. You know what I'm saying? The late Kobe Bryant, I used to always think about, you know, from a fan's perspective, I used to watch Kobe and just be like, man, I feel like this guy's arrogant, or I feel like he's, you know, not that. But then you hear the stories of other players and they're like, yeah, I loved Kobe Bryant because of X, Y, Z, A, B, and C. And there's this famous Allen Iverson story that I just heard where Allen Iverson came into town and Kobe Bryant was like, all right, I picked him up from the airport and said to Allen Iverson, where are you going? And Allen Iverson said, I'm about to go to the club. He said to Kobe, what are you about to do? And Kobe said, I'm about to go to the gym. Do you know what I'm saying? And you get to that point where it's just like, damn. Now, Iverson and Kobe are both monsters. I go to the club and I'd go to the gym. Sure, but the thing that is, you know what I'm saying? I've done both, right? But the thing is that if you're not thinking about your legacy like all the time, then you're not ready to think about legacy yet. It's okay. You're not there yet. But that's how you know you're thinking about your legacy, is that every time I have a conversation with my mom, with a student, with the front desk, the mailman, the cafeteria worker, I'm thinking about how can I impact your life? And how do I create this space that's going to help me? Because that's my legacy, man. My legacy, James, is about making sure that other people can be change agents, making sure that our people can find their voice and elevate it in however way they want to. And that's it. That's the only reason I do what I do every single day with my loved ones, with my partner, with my family, with anybody, anyone. It's just like I'm thinking about our future, you know what I'm saying, as a world. And that's the legacy. It's just like, y'all are going to remember me, man. And you're going to remember me because I'm impacting Mike, who impacted Jane, who impacted Lou, who impacted, you know what I'm saying? And that's how the world works. So, you know, it's hard. But that's work. You know, we're not here to just always sleep and play. That's fun too. But sometimes you got to do a little work, man. And that work is the legacies. When you start to say, listen, this is about it every day. I eat, sleep, and drink the thought of my legacy.
Yeah.
And last thing I'll say, sorry, James. Please, and last thing I'll say about that is that's why it was tough, right? Because, you know, to go back in the conversation about some of those vulnerabilities was that when you're thinking about legacy so hard, if you're not mentally prepared, if you're not confident, you talked about my confidence. If you're not mentally prepared, if you're not confident in who you are, and that takes so much work, right? That's therapy, that's conversations, that's like, you know, like tears, and that's joy, that's finding friends and finding people. If you don't have that in you, then that's when the legacy stuff starts to get into your head. And so for years, I didn't have those surrounding forces that were so beneficial. And that's why it's so essential to find people, right? Find loved ones, find people who are going to be that support system for you so that you can lift up yourself when those things are starting to be heavy on your shoulders.
Jeff, I don't know if Ted is watching, but you just gave a damn TED talk, my brother.
Man.
And I know you got the red hat on instead of the red rug, but the damn thing works.
Thank you, man.
Jeff, beautifully articulated. Yeah, that was awesome. Just dope to listen to you. And we are so similar in that way. In that, like, I am in the constant pursuit of that legacy, but the place that we differ the place that we differ is that you have let that hunger fuel you to start and smash the gas, whereas sometimes I let the insecurity of, am I doing the right thing? Is the next step the right thing? Am I going to fall through this frozen lake if I take the wrong step? Sometimes and then you're just sitting there, you're just standing there worrying, but you're not doing anything, right?
Yeah,
it's about putting yourself in motion. And that's what you do. It is what I strive to do. And it's beautiful, but it's tough. It's tough because it's hard not to get into a comparative space when you're trying to be innovative. Right? It's tough not to be like, well, is this the next cool thing? Well, is this the next cool thing? Right? I mean, we can shout out Thomas Edison and Benjamin Franklin because ain't nobody else doing shit back then. So hell yeah, they invented a whole bunch of things. And thank goodness for them, right? For seeing the opportunity and for innovating and being like, well, what if? Right? Like, thank goodness for them. But right now, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise, a lot of people out here talking, right? And it's easy to change how you write your story based on the way you let the noise influence you. And so it was really powerful to hear you speak. I'm feeling amped right now, Jeff.
Yeah. Let me tell you, me too, because, that noise and the reason why the noise exists is because if you hear a lot of the noise, right? If the noise is constant, and even though those insecurities are constant, is because we haven't yet fully aligned our legacy to ourselves, right? So it's like the train track that's just not on. It's like the train can go, but it's not going to be effective. If you have one flat tire, you can drive a car, but you're not going to get as far as you'd like to go. Mm-hmm. Now, the reason why, when I talk about that piece, what I mean by it is you've got to really start to say, my legacy cannot be aligned to innovation. It cannot be aligned to anything that can be taken away, right? Or it cannot be aligned to ideas. It has to be aligned to humans, right? To the idea of being a humble, humanistic individual, right? Now, what that means is your alignment has to be your legacy, right? And that path has to be, how can I help others? How can I be a part of this community? That's it. Because then it starts to get into this space that becomes that much more difficult when you're thinking, how do I change the world? Or how do I shift this? And how do I live in this space that is completely unpredictable? The one thing that I know is not unpredictable are people. Right. In essence, individuals are unpredictable, but people and being a human is not. And that is a constant. So when I align myself to saying I want to help humans find a voice, that's it. Now, as you can tell, I failed multiple different directions or didn't find the way until a particular way. But, rapper, speaker, teacher, professor, educator, writer, what is it? I don't know. But when you align it, but the thing that kept me on board was that I always knew it was about the voices of other people. Yeah. And I didn't know how it was going to happen. I didn't know where it was going to happen. I didn't know how it was going to turn out, but I knew that had to be the constant. And that constant was the thing that helped me say, even when I thought I was failing, even when I was scared, I have to stay the course on that. But the moment you start talking about ideas and things and innovative mindset, that's where it starts to get a little muggy because you can't predict any of that. And then what happens is you can't even control that. You know what I mean? And as you're doing something, they snatch it away. So you could be somebody that invented TikTok and then thinking that you made it. And then all of a sudden a president says, you know what? We banned TikTok. Now you're like, damn, there goes my legacy. It can't be that. It has to be, I want to do something to make people happy. If that's why you created TikTok or whatever. Right. So when you recognize what it is that you want to do for others, for people, then you change the game. You can't think of the money, you can't think of the material, you can't think of even like creativity. Like it can't be like my goal is to be creative. I mean, that's not good enough because even that is unpredictable. You know what I mean? That changes. But if you're like, listen, I just want, it's about people and you want to help people do this. That's how I tell people your legacy is created by saying, I'm here to help others do this. That's it.
Mhm. That's it.
That's it. Simplify it.
Yeah. Jeff, is beautiful, and I love what you talked about, man. And we're going to wrap this up. If y'all have some questions for Jeff, make sure you put some of them in the comments so we can get to the Q&A portion of this in a bit. But Jeff, here's what you just talked about that I really loved is that a lot of it comes back to alignment. And when I think about alignment, it's about what's your trunk. Right? What is your trunk that everything then branches off? A lot of people are out here trying to plant a bunch of trees, right? Well, I'm gonna start a candle business, and I'm gonna also invest in stocks, and I'm also gonna do this, and I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do all these things, and hopefully one of them will work. That's not the way it works. Instead, you got to invest in what that trunk is and figure it out. Like for me, the trunk is authentic and authenticity and vulnerability, and everything I do stems off of that. The speaking, the coaching, the podcast, the consulting, the all of that kind of stuff. It all stems from this nugget that is powerful. And you talking about alignment is really beautiful, and it's tough sometimes to find alignment because we don't want to see it when it's right in front of us. We know the things that bring us joy. We know the things that make us happy, but we're told by so many external sources that it can't be that. You got to follow this. Life is a set of train tracks. You hit all the stations. You graduate high school, you graduate college. You get your first place, you find the love of your life. Maybe you buy a dog, you have a kid or two, and then you retire, and then you die. Welcome to life. Buckle up, right? And that's not the way the shit works. You know that creepy road just to the side of the train tracks? That's where I am. I'm hanging out on that creepy road, driving my own damn car, figuring out, I'm going to take a right over here. I'm going to take a left. Yeah, I know where the stations are. I know how train tracks work. And yeah, I'll hit them eventually, but I'm also going to explore on my way. And I'm going to mess up, and I'm going to stop, and I'm going to look around, and I'm going to figure it out. But at the end of the day, that alignment is critical. And are you seeking alignment based on the shoulds of life, or are you seeking alignment based on the coulds of life? I think is an important thing that people need to think about. And I'm so glad that we're ending this conversation on alignment.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll be brief in saying this. It's, the things that have defined what alignment looks like, they were created, right? These ideas that create what we thought legacy was supposed to be was created when, Black people were considered 3/5 of a man, when women weren't allowed to be, professionals, when immigrants were called savages, when people who were homeless weren't allowed. Like, this is when these ideals were created, right? So we can't sit here and say, yeah, we're going to follow this path that was created when nobody but one voice had an opportunity to do it. You know what I'm saying? So if we can't sit here and say that we're aligned to these things today. So for me, that's the thing I'll close on, is just saying, like, when you find your alignment and you think that you're going the wrong path, ask yourself, when did that alignment start? Right? When did they build that foundation? To go back to what we talked about earlier, when did it begin? And if it began and you weren't part of the conversation, then you have to realign.
Preach. That's it. That's it, man. Right?
That's it.
I don't need to say anything else. Jeff, it has been an honor to have you here in Diner Talks with James. Thanks for sliding into the booth with me, brother. It's always a good time getting to hang out with you, and your wisdom, your confidence. You are contagious in a really beautiful way, and that speaks to the impact that you have had on so many and the ripple effect of the work that you do. So congratulations on the book launch. We Wear Kicks to Work. Make sure y'all pick it up. And also make sure you're hitting up Trill or Not Trill as well. And just seeing some of the work that they're doing out there, because they are truly moving the needle and having conversations like no other entity is doing in the educational space. Jeff, thank you for coming through.
James, man, it's a pleasure. It's always good to see you, and hopefully we can do this for real at a real diner the next time, man. So thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate everybody for listening, checking out the book, and all the things that we're doing. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
I love it. If y'all are willing to, if you have some questions for Jeff, please make sure you put those in the chat now, and let's continue the conversation. But for those of you on the podcast, thanks so much for listening. Really exciting to have you here. I appreciate y'all, and I hope you have a great and wonderful day. Be well. Jeff, you down to answer a few questions?
Yeah, if we got some.
Let's see what we got going on here. Yo, I appreciate you. I don't know if it's Sybil. I'm not entirely sure. Sibel, there we go. That was the third way I could have done it.
From Puerto Rico, man.
Yo, Sibel was great. Puerto Rico. I love me some Puerto Rico. Been there a few times. And not just the touristy part either. Screw that.
Yeah.
Let's get into the culture. Sibel, thank you for coming through. I appreciate the love, and you dropped a lot of knowledge in here, Sibel, as well. Thank you so much. Lenny Williams out here talking about chasing ghosts.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what happens, man.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, LeBron, man, that's a really good quote, man. Chasing ghosts. It has you thinking that you got to find, it's like LeBron has to be better than Jordan. Nah, man. Out here chasing things that can't even be found, man. So, Sibel, by the way, James, is an amazing educator. And Sibel, you got to connect with James. You got to hit him on social media or email or something like that. Because y'all would be, if y'all haven't met, so y'all have to meet each other. She's the bomb.
That'd be dope. Yeah. Always down to meet great people for sure.
Yeah.
Deb Padgett, thank you for the love. Appreciate you, friend.
Thank you, Deb.
Appreciate it. Lenny talked about this too. Being the first movers is not always the best in business. The way I think about it is, Buffalo invented the buffalo wing, but they didn't perfect it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. At all.
No offense to Buffalo. It's where my parents met and fell in love.
It's a great city. It's a great city. It's a great city.
It is. And also, my dad thanked you for the old Apple reference as well, and thank you for thinking of them and their generation.
Yes. Absolutely. I remember that commercial. Like not because I don't know when it came out. I might have been maybe 1 or 2 when it came out, but like it's so memorable, and I'm just like, yo, y'all have to, pay some homage to that. And then, then you think about 1984 and the connection to that. So shout out to John Robillata for that, man.
Shout out dad in the building. I love it. Jeff, I got a question for you, man. So first off, on a fun tip, we wear kicks to work. What are some of your favorite sneakers, in the game? I know you love Prestos and whatnot, but tell us a few other sneakers that we can frequently catch you in.
Yeah. Number one
out here.
Yeah. For sure. It's Prestos. So I wanted to reiterate, I know you said it, but I want to reiterate that Prestos are my favorite sneakers. I really like Fear Gods. Those are they're kind of like, they're fashion. Jerry Lorenzo is a fashion designer who worked with Nike in creating Fear Gods. I love me some Fear Gods. I like Jordans. My favorite Jordans, I like Jordan 1s, of course.
It's all about the ones.
Those are classics. And I'll tell you this, I've stopped purchasing these sneakers. But Yeezys used to be really comfortable, man. I'm not even gonna front. I don't buy them anymore, but they were a very comfortable shoe when I was purchasing them. I still wear them. I still have them in the house, but those are probably my favorites, man. I really like those. I also, I think those are it, man. I'm such a Presto guy, and I've been rocking those since I was in high school. So when they started coming back, I was just like, that's it. So I would say that. So yeah, Jordan. I also like Ewing. So I just got into.
Yes.
I think I'm gonna buy me some Ewings. I had some Ewings growing up, and I loved Ewings particularly because like centers, like big men, didn't always have shoes. It was always like these little guys. So to have some Ewings, so I'm gonna go cop some Ewings. I've been trying to stop purchasing sneakers. I just bought these J. Cole Pumas, these Dreamers that just came out.
You got to support your boy.
I do. So I don't actually, but
he's fine. He'll be fine.
He'll be all right. But those are probably my favorites.
I just I recently ordered a pair of Ewings as well for all the reasons, right? I haven't moved out in New York. Like I just gotta rep New York whenever I can. Like I bought multiple Yankee hats upon leaving New York City. I was like, no, I'm showing up. You gonna know where I'm from, Minnesota.
You have to let them know. Yankees looking good too, man.
Yankees are, and the Twins just lost, and not to the Yankees. So now my in-laws can't be mad at me, but they're still bitter about the other 900 times we beat them. It's funny. Tina's parents said, "I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you want to marry somebody who's black, white, purple, brown, polka dotted. I don't care. Just please don't marry a Yankees fan.
And here we are.
Here we are. Here we are.
I'm a
Every
Mets fan,
couple
and the
has
Mets
its
are
flaw.
trash. So
I
that's
love
rough.
it. Yeah, it is rough for sure. Last question I have for you, brother, is that last question I have is that you are in a beautiful relationship. And so here's my question for you when it comes to that. Oh no, here we go, Scott out here. Scott's from Minnesota. The Twins cannot figure it out in the playoffs for sure.
That's a lot,
Which
man.
is a shame. They got a good squad.
I know.
So yeah, it's disappointing for sure. But you are newly in a relation. You are newly engaged, which is super exciting. Congratulations. But I'm curious for you. As someone who dreams so big, as someone who is constantly in motion and is hustling towards getting these goals and creating bigger projects and meeting more individuals, getting in the room where it happens, to quote Hamilton. Right. So what is it like to have somebody on the back end? How does your partner help you in that way? Like, is there a grounding or is it a cheerleading? Like, what role does your partner play in your legacy building, in your ambition, and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, well, partner means that you're working in concert, right? So you got to work together. So I can't, and I think we've had this conversation. You can't be you can't be a public speaker and a motivator 24 hours a day. You know what I'm saying? I can't be like, man, this chicken can be so much more impactful to our lives if we you know what I'm saying? It just can't be like that. So I think it's just important for people. I know for me, it's been just really helpful to have somebody who understands your plight, who understands your will to win. Mm-hmm. And then you understand theirs. And y'all, not to be cliche, but you struggle in solidarity and you win together too. So yeah, I think for me, that's the biggest thing I'm constantly learning is that you got to fall back sometimes. You can't be on stage all the time. And I'm a guy who has struggled with that. So I think that's the biggest thing, man. You start to learn who you are, but more importantly, you start to learn how, to be your best self with somebody else. And if COVID-19 taught anybody anything who's in a relationship, you either walked out of COVID-19 stronger or y'all broke up. So I'm happy that we didn't break up. So
yeah. No, man, it's beautiful. I asked that question just because I'm obviously with Tina and we're in the same field, which is cool because we can speak the same language in that way. But it's often interesting to think about us as people who are out there telling others that believe in yourself, put in the work, you can do it, right? You can be some of those classic motivational things, right? Be a better leader. Here's how, here's why. You're right. There comes a point in time where we have to shut off. And what does that look like? And who is that person that we can just rock with and just watch a TV show with? And doesn't have to be anything more than that. And it's not to say that part of us is inauthentic and then on the couch is real. No, not at all. We're just allowed to take a break. It's like someone who identifies as an optimist. That doesn't mean you piss rainbows, right? You still have bad days. You still get angry. It's just that, you trend towards this is where that's how you most likely see what's happening in the world. So I appreciate you letting me ask that question, man, just from somebody else who's in love with someone who I know holds them down. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that, man.
Yeah. I love that because we sit back and watch like Married at First Sight randomly on a couch on a Wednesday. I think it's tonight actually, but so we'll sit down and watch a TV show, and we'll also go out and like try and change the world, and we'll also go out and be happily in love, and you can do all three of those things together. And I think it's just you got to really try and balance it out and embrace that moment on the couch where you're watching some random TV show, embrace that moment where you're, running through a park, having a good time, and also embrace that moment where you're just thinking about what your legacy is going to be like as a group, And for a long time, legacy for me was just me. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And then you start thinking about other things. You start thinking about family. You start thinking about future. You start thinking about how is this legacy going to be, different. And that's the thing that grounds you. You know what I'm saying? Is just like
Yeah.
understanding that piece. So that's really cool, man. I mean, it's just you don't realize it until you're in it. How important it is. You know what I'm saying? You feel
Yes.
great by yourself, and then you're just like, damn, I can't believe this is that much better.
Amen to that. Amen, Jeff. Thank you, brother. I can't thank you
Absolutely.
enough for coming through and spending a little bit of time with us. I'm gonna take you off the feed real quick and just hang out in the green room for a second. I'll come to you in just a minute, brother. But thank you,
Okay.
Jeff.
Appreciate you,
Appreciate
James.
you.
Always a pleasure, man. Peace to everybody in the room.
Peace, peace. My friends, thank you so much for tuning into Diner Talks with James. It was so amazing getting to hang out with my boy, Mr. Jeff Dess. Make sure you check out his website. Go on to Trill or Not Trill. Follow him online, Mr. Jeff Dess. Check out the book, We Wear Kicks to Work. So many places to connect with an incredible human being who's made a big impact on me. And I think if you watch this whole show, he made an impact on you as well. But my friends, the time is now, the time is upon us and we must part. So until next time, continue to punch small talk in the face by asking better questions. Y'all have a great night and take care.